whiff of that. Come on. Well, how did I get into cooking? Really, years ago, I think I spent, you know, as a child, I watched my grandparents cook, and my parents, well, my dad attempt to cook. He's got better recently, but yeah. And I always had a little bit of an inkling that I could do something different. And you know, I love the old programs, Patrick Pantry, which is showing my age, obviously, but Delia Smith and Floyd. These people were quite inspirational. They were keen on something, creating something almost out of nothing, and something was different, and making us actually believe that, you know, you didn't have to go to a high-level restaurant to actually get something enjoyable and nutritional at home. My background in sort of like into cooking is that I'm an amateur. You know, I use the moniker chef, but you know, I'm a home cook, and you know, I think chef, the phrase chef can often have views attached to it, being a pretentious git, but you know, I think you know, there are a lot of home cooks out there who you know, are striving to create and use as much natural and local ingredients as possible. And I think that's you know, that's one of my ethos. That's part of my ethos, yeah. See, I'm of an age where I used to do home economics at school. I'm not sure if they do anymore at school, but obviously I haven't been there for a long time, and if I did, it might be slightly inappropriate at this time. No, I shouldn't go with that route. But so I'm not aware if they do it as much as they used to, and I loved cooking. I used to love doing it, and like I say, I used to watch me nan and me mum cook, and I'll be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, and I use a lot of their ideas. And so yeah, that was at school. And then when I was a sixth former, I thought, oh, you know, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And the early days, yes, I wanted to be a chef, but you know, like I say, when I got to sixth form, it wasn't on my radar. However, it was one of these things that was an extracurricular activity where you could go off and do like an activity. I think it was basically for the lecturers to go down the pub, and one of the ones was a catering course, and I did it for about 2 or 3 weeks. But to be honest, it was about labelling things mostly, and you know, sharpening a knife. And to be honest, I was doing that when I was part-time at Little Chef. And when you mentioned a Drunken Chef school, that was probably my yeah, my learning area was the Drunken Chef. As a Drunken Chef was in the Little Chef. You know, it was basically made up of students and teenagers at weekends who basically were pretty inebriated, and you know, we used to cook. And you know, saying that, I did learn a hell of a lot there, because you learned about timings, and you learned about stock rotation and hygiene, which is, you know, it's all good. And but you know, we did have laughs, and one of my best mates at the time, well, he still is, you know, we used to work together, and if it was a really busy shift and we were cooking together, you know, we used to have a laugh. But you know, like I say, we were probably half cut most of the time. And you know, I just remember one time is that we were standing there, and it was really busy, and we were cooking, we were getting things out, and it was a bit of mayhem. And at that point, you know, I was like, oh, I need to put some, I think it was fried chicken, and I threw it from one end of the counter, the grill counter, into the frying basket. It was a brilliant shot. Unfortunately, it sprayed up into my mate's face, all this hot oil, and almost blinded him. Yeah, we laughed, and he probably has still got the scars today, but yeah, you might watch this and go, yeah, you bastard. But yeah, so I would say no real formal training. I'm self-taught, really. The key is to watch. You know, I watch a lot of cookery programs. You know, you try things out, you experiment, you learn from others, and yeah, I think that other than that, no real formal training. But I'm not a chef, I'm a cook. Well, besides good old beer, I do like Northern Monk. This is the current favourite tipple. I do like traditional ales, but I don't want to make out that basically I'm drinking all the time, because I'm not. Because the Drunken Chef, actually the name came about really because of, well, it was my older brother's fault really. He used to force me to sit there and watch, oh, nice skid. Used to make me force to watch the old karate movies with Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan and the other skinny fella. Young Bew, that's the fella. And you know, it was Meals on Wheels and you know, Police Story and things like that. And one of the ones was Drunken Master, and it was basically, he was plastered all the time because I think his wife died or something. You know, it was one of those catastrophes. Yeah, he you know, he was drunk, but he was a master of his own art. And you know, I think that's why I try to think it was like, well, you know, if you can be a master of your craft but still be inebriated, it was quite a good, you know, it was a comedy thing really. And then actually looking at it, it's a bit more of a metaphor, especially for at the moment in our lives, is that you take our busy lives. Are we drunk on success and working too much, you know, the current climate, and you know, that can make us feel like we're drunk on our lives. And whether we now go into a situation where, you know, we can actually cook and have a release from our lives, I think that's quite key. And I think it's almost metaphorical, which is very deep for me. Whether it is, or it might be a load of old cobblers, but you know, you pick out what you want. I think you know, obviously, like I say, there was the parental thing, but I think a lot of people, and it's a cliche, but I think a lot of people learn from their parents. Well, like I say, there's people like Keith Floyd, who I used to love watching, and you know, he was a pretentious and antagonistic old arse, but he was brilliant. He just brought everything to life. And you know, I think you could kind of, you can look back at those sort of early creators on TV that were you know, inspirational to a lot of people, and they broke the ground for people like Ramsay and Marcus Waring and, you know, Jamie Oliver and all them lot on TV. Because I know you had Fanny Craddock and things like that, but they weren't, they were a profile, but they weren't inspirational and something different. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think where they're concerned is, yeah, they obviously the way they created stuff out of almost nothing back then, that's inspired me. Historically, other than that, I mean, yeah, I mean, there are several ways. I mean, barbecuing meats and grilling meats and things like, if you're talking sort of like that historical way that we create, you know, a banquet, then yeah, that, I think that's one of my big things. It's really important to try and achieve. Sorry, I just need to, this is just splitting out. You know, it's quite important to try and achieve, especially in today's society where we don't have that kind of big banqueting, family interaction a lot. And you know, that is one of the things I do like. And I think Antonio Coluccio said one of the things that I do believe in is to cook for someone is to show love. And I kind of go with that. You know, and yes, it shows love for the people you're cooking for because it's a nurturing activity, but also it's a therapeutic activity. But like I say, going back to any sort of like big inspirations of it, like I say, we're of my age, is like early on it was people like Floyd. Nowadays, I mean, we're talking the Hairy Bikers, absolute legends. Ramsay, when he actually cooks, brilliant. When he's doing his other programs, but then again, there's things like MasterChef, who I just think that things like that, they're absolutely bloody god awful. And Greg Wallace is an absolute tool. I cannot stand him, man, because he's a pretentious wanker. If we're talking sort of like amateurs, we've got people like All Things Barbecue. Although he's a professional chef, but he's using and this is on YouTube, he's got all sorts of barbecues, which he does a lot of grilled meats. Obviously they're not particularly vegetarian or vegan orientated, but it's a great sort of like in barbecuing and smokers, and he's a great fella. His name's Chef Tom, and he's got a beard as well. There must be something about beards. There's another one on YouTube, Rafika's Kitchen. She's fairly new, and she's I think she's Turkish, and she's done some wonderful recipes based on obviously Turkish food, but she's kind of modernised it so that it's accessible for everyone, and I really like that idea. And obviously on YouTube there's Jamie Oliver. You know, his YouTube channel is actually really quite good because he kind of has a lot of other chefs that come on there and do recipes, which is a real good, I'd say, into their worlds. And you know, obviously the internet's brilliant for that. But yeah, I think you know, if we're still talking about professional, if we want to look at the professional side of things, yeah, there are a lot of good chefs out there, brilliant chefs, but on the amateur side, yeah, I think YouTube's a great source for that. And you know, they're just the ones that come to mind, really. Ingredients wise, hang on, bear with me. Oh yeah, take a whiff of that, come on. You smell that? Want to have a sniff? Ooh. Fresh as possible, obviously, and I think any amateur chef, chef will always say fresh as possible. I love our local ingredients, you know, our national kind of staples, but also love things that we can get from, you know, Africa, we can get from Greece, we can get from America, and I love that fact that we can get all these ingredients from all over the shop. And the fact that it's things like the Mexican grocer on the internet, and you can get tomatillos, you know, you can get chipotle, and I think that's wonderful. And I love cooking with all things, really, and you know, the fresher the better, really. I think for a lot of my cooking is basically multicultural. Oh, there's a good one. Multicultural Chef. Oh, someone can have that one for free. The Multicultural Chef. Yes. Yeah, I do love cooking from around the world, but I also like, and I hate using the phrase, and it's bandied around as fusion cooking. Is, you know, you fuse a little bit from somewhere and everything like that. Well, yes, you can do that, and I do enjoy, you know, experimenting where that's concerned. But I do love Italian food. Italian food is, you know, simple, really good ingredients combined in a way that is just, you know, it's not overcomplicated, it's just there and it feeds the masses. And then you've got things like Greek food, which is so fresh. You know, they use the freshest ingredients, the fresh lemons, fresh oregano, grilled meats and things like that. And then you've got, say, the Americans. They don't do a lot well, but they do barbecuing well. At the end of the day, you can't knock them for their barbecue. Their meat, yeah, you can, but their barbecue, no problem. But yeah, I would say that I love cooking all things. So, as an aside, this beef has been brined, and then for an hour, and then taken out of that brine and in a marination, which is thyme, olive oil, lemon, and chilli. And that's still marinating now for 2 hours. Almost perfect. See, now I've got a close extended family member who is what I call a proper vegan, and we often have discussions about these sort of things. And you know, we have a little bit of a laugh about me eating meat and things like that. But I think it's such a contentious issue. In today's society, I think if we're now looking at environmental concerns and also our health concerns, is that we should certainly introduce vegetarian and vegan style foods into our diets. And you know, as a nation, we do eat a lot of meat, and we always have done. You know, it's one of those difficult situations, is that we now are aware that meat production is costly to the environment, and the overconsumption of meat products is detrimental to people's health. So, you know, we have a choice as a nation, as a world, to actually reduce, and I think an obligation to a certain extent, to reduce our consumption of meat. And I know that for some people that seems like heresy, but you know, you actually go back and you look at a lot of the foods we even eat. We have adopted vegan and vegetarian food since day one. It just wasn't called vegan or vegetarian food. I mean, years ago when they did start labelling vegetarian food in restaurants, it was bloody awful, and the same with vegan food. But now, as we've learned that, you know, about different flavour profiles and introducing those flavours and combinations, and accessibility to all these flavours, we can actually make something that actually some people will regard as rabbit food actually tastes superb. I think the fad that we're starting to see at the moment, yes, it may move people over to being vegans or vegetarians, but I think it's dodgy ground we're on, where we're now producing fake meat. You know, you now can get burgers and you can get sausages, and they are meant to be attractive to meat eaters, but you know, they're highly processed, they're full of fat, you know, they're not environmentally friendly because obviously the processing costs a lot of money. Then they've got to be packaged in a certain way because they're too fragile. So if you were making a conscious effort as a vegan to be more environmentally friendly, they're not. But should we include vegan food? Yes, I think no doubt we have got to incorporate those aspects into our lives. And at the end of the day, it's choice. Some people will say, you know, I'm never going to touch anything like that. I'm going to eat me meat and 2 veg. Others will embrace it and, you know, will think, well, you know, I can only eat meat at weekends, or, you know, twice in the week, and I can have a vegetarian meal that fills me up and is nutritious, and you can have a vegan style food and it isn't going to be something that's mass produced. You know, proper vegan stuff is like that. That is proper. That's another one of those ones that's a bit of a leading question, in the fact that you could actually start to sound like a bit of a git. I just need to get this chicken off first, if you bear with me. I do think as sorry, right. In an ideal way, we'll use artisan suppliers for everything. Now, I try and use, oh, look at the juice coming off of these babies. Sorry. I try and use a local butcher, and it's high welfare meat, and you know, and that's important to me, but not everyone can afford that, and I accept that. You can have artisan bakeries, deli, and fish counters and things like that, who are all producing fantastic produce. But yes, they are more expensive. Now, I'm not saying they're necessarily much better than what you can get in a supermarket, but there is a big difference, and it all comes down to choice. The thing is with supermarket food is that, you know, they're still high welfare meat and certain products, but you know, they also cater for, you know, products that are pumped full of water and meat glue and, you know, and some other bleeding nasties. And I think it's tragic that we're still producing those things, and they produce them because basically it's so that people can afford them. Now, I'm in no doubt in this country at the moment we have got people who are genuinely suffering with food poverty, and you know, I don't think it's right that we should be catering for them in a poor product. It should be as good a product as possible. It should be universal. But we are one of these situations that, you know, it's not sustainable. And you know, I use a local fruit and veg supplier. Now, they're just down the road for me. Now, not everyone can afford to go to them. I'd say the butcher, not everyone can go to the butcher. So I just need to add this to this slaw. This is just a simple dressing. Just mix that up there. Just plate that up there. Let's move this out the way. Move these out the way. And there you go, smoked chicken with a vegan slaw. So as I was saying, is that you know, some supermarket products are good, some are bloody awful, but it's all down to choice, and some people can afford to do it, some people can't. But we also have the choice to introduce, as I said, more vegetarian and vegan food through the week and eat meat only occasionally. Then it doesn't cost people as much. A good beard. Let me just have this beer. Hopefully I've created a platform that is not intimidating and is full of kind of recipes that I've done, I'll say, the hard work. I've been round and had a look all through the books and everything like that, combine the recipes and create something that's quite simple to do, and hopefully is therapeutic for people. You know, I find cooking very therapeutic, and I would say that it's one of the few things in life that we do have control over. You know, especially in our busy lifestyles at the moment, you know, people get stress out their minds because they can't control things. Cooking, you can. You know, you are the master of everything you do. You can get organised, you get all your ingredients ready, you decide the temperature, you decide the time frame that you're doing it, and it brings back a certain amount of control back into your lives. So hopefully I've kind of got that message over to people, is that, you know, cooking is more therapy. I mean, I use it so I don't pull the legs off of small animals regularly, and it, you know, no, I don't do that, honestly. I don't. I'm an animal lover. Chickens, stuff. Oh. But I think that's basically with my Facebook site, is that there is a platform that allows people to have an insight into some, you know, weird and wonderful recipes and some simple stuff that maybe they wouldn't have come across. Before I start that torrid tale, let me just get this out of the way. Right, back. Harry, well, he's a lovely lad, isn't he? Yeah, very talented young man. How did we meet? Well, the wife and his mum, best friends, and I think I met him when he was about 15, and yeah, he's one of these people who's got a talent for just finding something and then just picking up on it. And I think it was 2 years ago I managed to get this knife for Christmas, and it's absolutely awesome. It's one of these knives that it's based on a Turkish knife, and it's you know, designed for this, but it's brilliant for chopping up ribs and all sorts, but even a fine dice with it. And as I say, he's a very talented young man, as you well know. Learn the basics. I think that's the key, and it sounds dull, but you know, learn the basics about, you know, how to make white sauces, how to make emulsions, you know, and how to cook meat and how to eat meat, you know, and appreciate certain cuts, where that cut comes from. Learn about the foods, learn about flavour profiles, what goes with what, when you can actually combine two different things and maybe a third, and you know, that completes the meal. Also is, you know, don't stress about getting, you know, going straight off the bat with something overly complicated. Start with simple things. Learn the craft, but also is make sure you've got, you know, good equipment. You haven't got to spend thousands and thousands on stuff, but you know, I've got a smoker. You don't need a smoker. You can use a bog standard barbecue to create a smoking environment. But also knives. You know, buy yourself at least one really good knife, like a Wenman knife. And you know, buy yourself a good blender, buy yourself a really good piece of cast iron, frying pan, griddle, buy yourself a nice barbecue. But you know, you don't have to spend thousands and thousands, but you know, these are, you know, the fundamental. Make life easier for yourself, because you can then develop nicely from that point. And that's what I would say to give anybody who want any advice to get into cooking, and have some passion about it. You haven't got to create masterpieces every single day of the week. You know, use your Saturdays, your Fridays, your Sundays, and use that time to unwind and create something with love for people you love. Bastard. Don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, it's bad. This has been brined in my own brine. No, that sounds like I've brined it in my own spunk. Sorry.